I've decided I'm not going to go into the long introductions because in your programs we have a lot about the speakers, and then you'll be talking a lot about yourself anyway. But this is one of our authors, Ron Chapman, and this is a copy of his book, Seeing True. Now, everyone who's speaking today, their books will be available in the vendor area, and they'll all be doing book signings directly after this talk. So this is Ron Chapman.
Thank you, Dolores. So first, a big thank you to Dolores and Ozark Mountain, and also a thank you in advance to Armand and Angelina, who are going to give me a little bit of help with some music here in a little bit as we do some of the work we're going to do here today. And if you didn't know it, a very big thank you to a cadre of volunteers who are making sure you have the experience you have. That deserves applause, please. So just a few days ago, I had a woman come to me. She was actually referred by another woman who I've been doing a variety of healing work with for some time. And let's call her Patty, because she'd be embarrassed if I disclosed her real name. Patty sat down on the couch, and I looked at her, and what I saw was already the beginning of tears around her eyelids. You know that sense that you get when someone's almost on the edge of bursting into tears, and you could feel the rawness of her feelings. And she got ready to start talking, and I said, no, stop. Stop. Pull your shoulders back. Breathe with me. And she tried to talk again. I said, no, stop. Pull your shoulders back. Tuck your chin up. Breathe. And we stayed there for a few moments because I was aware that she was beginning to overcompensate for a rush of feelings by jumping into her head and telling me a bunch of stories. So we had to stop her. And after we got her settled, I said, okay, now take a deep breath and tell me why you're here. And she said, I'm here because I'm a crack addict in recovery. I have a long history of prostitution. I have been raped and brutalized more times than I can remember or account for, and I have got to get this stuff healed. I said, okay. She said, can we heal this? She told me a few other things about what she's doing. And I said, here's what I know, Patty. I know that using the breath will at least calm you. I know that, absolutely. I can promise you that. I'm pretty confident if you learn how to use this breath, that you are going to experience some healing. And sometimes, if we use breath and some of the other modalities that you may have to use because you've got a big history of trauma, I will promise you it's possible to be transformed. And her eyes teared up, and again I said, stop, pull your shoulders back, tuck your chin up, close your eyes and breathe. And she said, I can't close my eyes because when I close my eyes, I get flashbacks. And I said, okay. So don't close your eyes, soften your gaze and breathe. And we began the process. I don't know where it will end with her. I think it's a great example. I mean, it's only a week ago. It's a great example of the kinds of things that we have opportunities to work with. Many of you know this. Some of you know it quite deeply. I have a few things to share about that. Now, on the other end of the continuum, just in case you think that was a little bit too dramatic for a start, I've got a guy who's using breath work to plan his surfing vacation in Hawaii. So, you know, I mean, whatever it works for, so use the breath. I have a few things to say about why that is. But before we do that, I'm assuming there are a lot of novices to the realm of breath work. And so as a result, I'm going to ask Armand and Angelina to help me a little bit with a little bit of soft background music. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of very measured breath. Very, very measured. It's a primer. It's a starter. It's kind of like if you're a fan of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, when Jonathan says, we're going to start with level flight, right? Let's just start at the basics. So what I want you to do while they're getting ready is I want you to make sure your feet are on the ground, because that grounds you. I want you to make sure your shoulders are back. It opens you, opens your chakras. Be mindful of keeping your chin up. Close your eyes, don't close your eyes, whatever's comfortable for you. I'm going to walk you through a very basic starting primer on breath work. and then we'll talk a little bit about why that is. So on a count of 4, I want you to take a long, deep inhalation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale deeper. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale more deeply. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale deeply through your diaphragm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Deeper inhalation. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bring your attention to your toes and wiggle them. Bring your attention to your fingers and wiggle them. Notice what needs stretching. Stretch it, hands over heads if you need to. Pull your shoulders back, whatever you need to stretch. Bring your attention back to your feet. Take one last deep breath. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So let me give you a frame of reference for this work. The first frame of reference is called the dual ladders of ascension. Some spiritual masters would say that the way we climb to ascension or nirvana or enlightenment or highest self or the force or Tao or whatever you want to call it is that in fact you must ascend dual ladders. One is with the intellect, the other is with experience. Lots of us are very good with the ladder of intellect. We read books, we attend conferences. Most of us are not so good with experience because we really don't want to sit still because most of us have squirrels in our heads. And when you start trying to sit still, the squirrels start having a really interesting and raucous time in your head. I know this because I teach meditation and we got to quiet the squirrels often. Okay. So the reason they refer to it as the twin ladders of ascension, and of course ascension, elevation, doesn't need explanation. You can use whatever frame of reference you have for it. Is because if you think about having two ladders, there's a limit to how high you can ascend as your legs get further apart. So if you are like me and you have a preference for intellect, you can only take 2 or 3 large steps forward before, I'm going to balance myself so I don't fall off the stage, right? You're like this, you can't go any higher. The intellect can only take you so far. So too with experience, the other ladder. If you advance in experience, which many of you probably have, either through meditation practices, psychic practices, all sorts of things, crystal healing activities, again, the same problem. You can only ascend so far with the experiential side before you can go no higher. Sooner or later, we have to ascend both feet, one with intellect, one with experience. It doesn't matter which you lead with. The only thing that matters is that eventually, short of falling off the dual ladders, you have to advance the other foot. That's the way the deal works. I start with that because my book, Seeing True, which we're going to do just a little bit with here in a moment, Seeing True, 90 Contemplations in 90 Days, Seeing True plays with the intellect. It's one side of the equation. So let me show you an example of that, and this will be familiar. Many would call this a contemplative meditation. So in other words, if you're not familiar with that form, I'm going to read something to you. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I'm going to ask you to play in your head with those questions. I don't care what answers you have, just play with it. So this is a reading entitled Nothing. The group became edgy as soon as it was said, I need do nothing. Relax and take it easy. Immediately, a man's hand shot up. He said urgently, but of course, we must take action, right? The teacher simply shook his head. I need do nothing. The statement struck the man in an almost physical way. He recoiled from the words and might have spoken again if another had not leapt into the frenzy. That's crazy. God helps those who help themselves. Now the teacher grinned. I need do nothing, for there is nothing to be done. With this, the group suddenly fell into the quiet. A woman with light in her eyes asked, things aren't what we think, are they? The teacher smiled greater still. God alone is initiative. We need do nothing. Collectively, a feeling almost like a sigh swept through the room. Truth relaxed them almost as one. We need do nothing. Relax and take it easy. We're in good hands, hands that have held us all along. There's nothing that needs to be done. Questions. Just for this moment, consider doing nothing. Contemplate the possibility that nothing needs doing. What do you feel in your body when you contemplate this? I'm letting you feel for a moment. So what you just got was an intellectual exercise. I gave you words for your mind to play with. Hopefully I read them in a way that helped you keep up with me. Some of this was probably a little bit provocative because the proposition of doing nothing is really quite offensive to a lot of us. Some of us are quite busy in the world. And then I actually made the segue to the experiential side because I asked you to stop and notice your feelings. Okay? So that's the bridge between the ladder of intellect, the ladder of experience. I want to talk about the ladder of experience now on the experiential side. Let me start with this, and for some of you this will be no surprise whatsoever. Certainly Dolores has been building a lot of this work around this all along. You are swimming in a soup of energy, information. There's like stuff buzzing, and we are in a soup of sensory perception, perceptible materials. You were swimming in that soup before you even popped out of your mother's womb. How do I know this? Because if you couldn't swim in the soup, you would have died. We have evolved generation after generation after generation after generation, knowing how to swim in the soup of information. Here's the first example. You all have heard the stories about how if you deprive a child of touch, that it's devastating to them. We know. We don't have an intellect. Remember, the intellect doesn't form until the age of 2, more or less. So there's no intellect. You don't pop out of mama's womb and say, somebody better touch me. Right? You got no intellect, you got no language. But down here, for those of you who have done trauma work, for those of you who have explored dysfunctional family settings, you know that there's a feeling down in there that says, somebody's not paying attention to me. This could turn out really badly, which from an evolutionary point of view means I could die. And we know that. Deep down in here, no words for it, none whatsoever. That has evolved over time, some would propose deep in the brainstem. It's the most basic of our programming. We don't even know we have it. It's true of all kinds of influences, whether you call it God or the cosmos or collective conscious. It doesn't matter what modality you play in. It all is ways of bringing information to us that when we were very little, we were very aware of because we were wired to pick up on it. We knew it deep, deep down inside us. And then about the age of 2, this little intellect thing we all like to play in, it kind of snaps in as a personality. It's like, okay. And slowly but surely, we are taught and enculturated to begin lessening our attention to those experiential things, the most fundamental of feelings. Now, the people who study Gurdjieff will not be surprised. The Gurdjieffians say that the whole purpose is to get a personality, a good one, hopefully, a good, strong one that's going to give you a lot of trouble. You're laughing. Some of you have one of those. Me too. I'm with you. Then the spiritual path, regardless of what you choose, is about using that strong personality, the ego, as fuel for the development of the soul. So in other words, you can't keep developing your skill sets, your personality, and cross a certain threshold. In fact, for those of you with a deep Christian orientation, they say that this is in fact the reference of the crucifix. That the crucifix represents the vertical path, the path of the soul. The horizontal represents the personality. Most of us spend all our time on the crossbar rather than following the vertical path, because the vertical path is beyond your personality, it's beyond knowledge, it's beyond the acquisition of another modality. Except that we get attached to modalities, right? It's like, I'm just sure I got the right prayer, been using it for 22 years. That's called attachment. It's a problem. It's very fixed. It's very rigid. It shuts down possibilities. Some of us get attached to a particularly lovely crystal or to a particular CD that we just love listening to, and we do it for decades, and then we buy another one because we've worn one CD out. I know a guy who reads the same page of the same book and has been reading the same page for 20 years, and the evidence would suggest he's not advancing, but he has got it memorized. Intellect, not experience. So this invitation to breath work, and we're going to do another exercise here in just a moment, is to begin to explore what lies down underneath the intellect. And you can't do it in the intellect. You can't find it in the intellect. It's experiential. So we're going to go do a little bit of breath work again. And I'm going to walk you through it a little bit differently than the last one, although I will probably start with what we started with the last time just to get you settled. What I'm going to ask you to be prepared to do is when we're done, some of you I know have journals with you, which, two thumbs up, yay rah. That's because stuff that comes up out of the soup will rapidly escape your ego. You all know this, right? I had one example one time. I had this brilliant breakthrough awareness come up. And I go, wow, this is life-changing. So I wrote it down. 7 times that day I tried to tell people about it. I could not recall the life-changing experience. I had to pull my journal out to recount it because I could not bring it back. 7 times during the day. And I was talking with my spiritual mentor, and he said, Ron, the ego has no desire for you to see something differently. And it's erasing it. It's a good thing you wrote it down. So some of you are going to come out of this with something. I don't know what. Some of you will have memories. Some of you will have thoughts, because some of us are very cerebral. Some of you may have like a movie pop into your head. Some people are very auditory. They literally have a friend who said he was doing this exercise, and he said, what I heard at one moment was this still small voice that said, it's fine, Art. It's fine. We might hear, I have no idea. For me to think for a moment that I have any idea what you need, what's coming to you, is the height of arrogance on my part. Each of us must have our own personal experience. That's what it means to have a personal relationship with the divine or the force. What I'm going to want you to do is to pay attention. If something comes up when I bring you out of this short breath exercise, write it down before it gets away. Okay? So, both feet on the floor. Shoulders back, chin tucked up. Level flight breath first. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'd like you to scan your body ever so gently. Tips of toes to top of head. Just notice if there's anything in your body talking to you. What I'd like you to do, if you have something there, just make note of it. You can name it if you like. You can call it a feeling, or you can say it's gravelly or tight or loose or anxiety or whatever. And then what I want you to do is to bring your attention to a spot in the body associated with that feeling. And I want you to just breathe in and through that feeling in the body. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice if the feeling has changed at all. It might move. Something might have popped into your thoughts or your memories. Have no idea. Just notice what's there. What I'd like you now to do is to bring to mind some current grievance or some challenge, some difficulty in your life that's unresolved. And on the breath work, notice where that feels in the body. Hold the thought lightly. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice if anything has changed. It may have softened, it may have moved, it may have completely transformed. You may have a word, a thought. Relocate in your body where you have a feeling. Think for a moment about that unfinished piece of business you have. Breathe into the spot in your body. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice again what you're feeling. Scan your bodies with a very, very light attention. Notice what you feel and where you feel it. Name it. It's still tight, it's soft, it's scratchy, it's irritating. Locate it in the body. Call your attention to that physical spot in the body. Take a deep inward breath. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Scan your body once more. Notice if anything has changed. Pay attention to any feelings, thoughts, whatever's there. Relocate it in the physical body. Breathe into that feeling. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Scan yourself once more. Embrace yourself either mentally or physically, or pat yourself somewhere that feels comforting. Wiggle your toes so you can feel the ground. Wiggle your fingers. Bring your attention back here now. Stretch whatever needs stretching. Write whatever needs writing. Especially if there was a word or a phrase or a particular memory. So, breathe while folks are writing their thoughts. Thank you again for beautiful harp music. If it's true, and I offer this as a question because one of my teachers said to accept what any teacher said is called gullibility. You have to hammer this out on the anvil of your own experience. If it's true that we're swimming in a soup of information, nonstop, 24/7, operating below the threshold of the intellect, if it's true that the universe is a beneficial design, a benevolent design, designed for your success and well-being, that would mean you're getting information all the time if you can create space for it. I have friends who've woven this into their meditation practices. I have friends who have gone more deeply with things like EMDR, much other ways of gaining access through various forms of regression. There's a whole lot of things you can do to add to this. You can add tapping to this. My purpose of this is not to go into that in depth. If you choose to spend some time with me, we'll talk about that. There's actually more information coming later today and tomorrow that I'll share with you here in a moment that you want to be paying attention for. But if it's true that the universe is designed for your growth, development, and well-being, and there is information operating beneath the threshold, much of it happening before the age of 2, before we had an intellect to work with it, then we would be wise to tap into it. One of my teachers said, Ron, the way we are designed is one side of the brain is the receiver, the other side of the brain is the operator. The receiver gets the senses, hands it off to the doer, and the doer says, I should write this down, right? Or I should go find a yoga class, or I should fill in the blank, right? So what I want to do now is I want to spend a couple minutes. I have a bit of guidance for you, though, because I want to hear from you. Because if all you do is listen to me, I don't feel like I'm doing the service I'm here to do. What I want to know is not your questions. What I want to know, and we've got a microphone coming up here someplace, back there. I want to know, did you have an impression? Did you have a feeling? Did something come clear? Now the guidance is, don't rush into the intellect. What we like to do is take a feeling, 2 words, and then tell a 4-minute dialogue about what it means, right? That's called the intellect. I'm offering you a space to say, here's something, and what I'm going to ask the rest of you to do is breathe while we're chit-chatting here a little bit. You don't have to do anything, really. Really. So, I got a microphone. I got a guy who's willing to bring the microphone to you. Who would like to give voice to something that you thought or sensed? Please, let's get you a microphone before you talk so you end up on the video recording. It's your 4 seconds of fame.
Okay. During that, I saw a tunnel, and it was like a moving live tunnel that just kept getting smaller as it got to the bottom with like a white light. And I saw it another time with one of your breathing when I closed my eyes. And it was interesting because it was so alive. Mm-hmm. It was dark and grays, and then it went right into that light.
Yeah, so can you still feel that in your body right now? If you close your eyes, can you remember the feeling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on to the feeling. Hold on to the feeling. It's a piece that gets away from us because we jump into the intellect and start telling the story. So hold on to the feeling. It's guidance, okay? Great. Thank you. Who's got something they'd like to share? I know you're not a shy group. Dolores told me you're not a shy group. Please.
Okay, the first thing that I saw was an eye, and there was eyelashes and green around it. Then I just saw pearls of green, like necklaces. Just, that's it. And then I saw a pyramid of green. Everything was green. That was it.
Do you have a feeling associated with it?
Yeah.
Do you have it located someplace in the body?
In my heart.
Okay, good. What I would propose is you stay with that visual, stay with that feeling, and breathe with it and see where it goes. Okay? Excellent. Thank you. I'll have a word to say about why this is important for all of you here in a moment, but let's see who's got, yes, sir, right back here, right back there. He's standing up right now. This is actually a chance to give the camera people something to do that's creative rather than staying right here, too. Go ahead.
Probably the biggest skeptic in the room right here, okay. As I did the exercise, the first thing that popped into my mind was this home that I built with a lot of love. It's on a place that has a beautiful view of a valley. It has everything that any person would want to have easily at hand to do. It's beautiful, it's restful, it's a great place to be. I can't sell it. I've been trying to, I mean, I probably have a multiple of several hundreds of thousands of dollars in the house, but there isn't an income in the area where it is to qualify to buy it. So as I was
okay, so I'm going to ask you to step up a little bit. You're dropping into the intellectual story, and it's fine.
Okay.
I'm not.
I know. I agree with that. I agree with that. So as I was doing the breathing exercise, I began to see Trevor, who's sitting over there, in the house, doing the thing that he loves to do. And then I began to see me in the house doing the thing that I love to do. And then I began to see lots of people coming to share that experience in the house.
How does that feel? Do you feel that?
It felt very good, because all I've been able, I don't want to get off in the weeds again.
Okay.
The focus to this point has been, what will I do if I can't sell this house? And now the question was, well, what would I do if I sold it?
That's good. I hope you wrote that down somewhere. See, that's a different question. That's a different question. And sometimes, as you all know, we're looking in the wrong directions, and we need to look someplace different. Who's got something else? Who'd like to share a thought? This is that long facilitator's pause right up here. Yeah, please wait till the microphone, right up front. Oh, right up front. Yep, thanks. If I knew her name, I'd tell you her name, but you don't know her name either, so. Oh, right up here, yeah.
Well, it was a little bit weird.
A little bit weird.
I was inside a crystal. It was a huge crystal, a blue one. And this is in a place called Palenque, Mexico, with the pyramids. It was a lot of different civilizations in that crystal, so that I was in that crystal. And they were showing me, you know, like not a voice, like a force. There were civilizations, not just from Atlanteans or Mexico. It was other civilizations that were all together in that crystal. They were also from extraterrestrials also. And in my body, I had a lot of crystals, you know, all over, like, that was my experience.
How does it feel? Do you have a feeling?
It feels very good.
Okay, okay. Can you translate good into an adjective of some type? Did it feel soothing? Did it feel soft? Did it feel warm?
Relaxing.
Relaxing. Okay, good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Let me say about why I'm doing that. If it's true that we must advance the intellect and the experience, we have to resist the tendency to go into the intellect to figure things out. It's the place where most of us are the most comfortable, but we come back into the body. What I've learned about doing, whether it's this kind of soft work or whether we go more deeply into trauma work, trying to really get some deep healing on some deeply held things, is that stuff doesn't exist in the intellect. What you all are giving is a visual, oral portrait of something that is held beneath the threshold of thought. And for some of us, it's really hard to put a finger to it. I used to describe this when I was learning how to do it as feeling like I was trying to put a finger on a bubble in water, right? So like, I can't quite. And by the way, I cussed a lot when I did this, but this is a cool place, so I'm not going to do that, but I can't quite, right? And I would call my spiritual mentor and I would describe it, and he would go, okay, let's go back into the experience. So let me say this, and I want to see if someone else has something to share before I move on. What I've learned, and the reason I'm encouraging you to follow the feeling trail, is it's like a tapestry. The story trying to be told is like a tapestry, a woven tapestry. And what the psyche, the soul seems to do, the divine design, whatever it is, what it tries to do is it tries to give us a thread to begin to try to unravel it. And we can't do it up here. We have to do it at the feeling level. And so it's offered up, and what we do is we stay with it. We let it tell the story for us. We don't rush it. We don't push it. We just let it unfold. It's very complementary to your meditation practices. Those of you who have them, you can weave it into any breath work you're doing. A lot of ways to do it. We're trying to keep coming out of the intellect because we can't get out a lot of this stuff in the intellect because it's not in the intellect, particularly if you're dealing with the healing of a wound. If you're talking about trauma, it's not in the intellect, it's in the body, perhaps at the cellular level. You can't get there with intellect, which is why, for many of us, talk therapy was not sufficient to get at some things that needed to be attended to. So let me see if someone's got one more. Someone's probably holding. Oh, look, hands are shooting up. Okay, right here. We're going to do 3 then, if you'll be brief. We got 1, 2, 3. Oh, we got 4. Go ahead. Thank you.
Do I have to stand up?
You do have to stand up. The fact that you asked the question meant you had to stand up.
Well, I had a bit of I didn't see anything visually at all, so I feel like I had a different experience. But I felt a severe need to know, like an openness, and I felt comfort from that.
Do you have the severe feeling to know? Is it attached to someplace in the body?
I'd say my chest.
Your chest, like right up here in the center above the breastbone?
No.
No?
More like my chest area.
Ah, okay. Okay, good. Good. Then when you're working with that, keep your attention on the feeling and use breath to work through the feeling and see what will reveal itself. The fact that you use the word severe, yeah, I mean, that's a strong word.
I felt desperate almost, too.
Desperate, yeah.
Desperate.
Yeah, yeah.
But yet comfort came
Yeah.
from that.
So are you feeling anything in your shoulders right now?
They seem to be down.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
almost
you were
like-
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure what that means.
pull 'em
except
up,
They
sti-
do feel heavy.
Yeah, how
Now
about
that you
that?
said that.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing to
I
notice
do
and pay
have a lot
attention
of
to.
things on my shoulders in my life like everybody else. Maybe that's what that means.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
We got 3 more over here. Let's do them real quickly. We have 4 more over here. We're going to try and race through these, and then we're going to move on because Dolores didn't give me half a day to talk with you all, but maybe next time. Yeah, please.
I became nauseated.
Nauseated, like
Yeah.
deep down in the pit of the belly,
Yeah,
nauseated?
I felt real nausea.
Huh.
And then this light opal colored color, I felt that color in my whole upper part of my stomach.
Huh.
And then it felt very light. It was good. It was a comforting feeling.
So the continued breathing began to ease it some, so you
Yeah.
got some, let's call it relief.
Yeah.
Ah, excellent, excellent. Thank you. Because if you remember what I told the woman that I started my talk with, I said at a minimum it will soothe you if you stay with it. Probably it will promote healing, and possibly if you do the work deeply enough, it may change your life. Yeah, so good. Soothing's good, right? Soothing's good. Soothing's good. Okay, so the woman right behind you wanted the microphone. Oh, she now looks shy. All the more reason to stand up and tell us.
I didn't want to do this.
I recognize that.
The color I saw was deep blue, and at first, that's all I got. And then I saw my dog being killed.
So you should stop and breathe right now. Pull your shoulders back. It's okay. It's okay. Don't look down. Stay up here. Stay right.
That's why I didn't want to do this.
Don't talk. Pull your shoulders back. I'll stay with you right here. We got time. You just breathe. Just pull your shoulders back. It's okay. Pull your chin up. Chin up. Shoulders back. Just breathe. Use your breath to ride the edge of it. Just don't crash into it. Just breathe. It's okay to cry.
I'm not a crier. That's why it's so unusual.
Yeah. So what you want to do is just sit right there and just breathe. Just breathe. In fact, if the woman next to you, would you just reach out and touch her forearm just very light? Don't pat her.
This is my daughter.
Don't pat her. Don't take care of her. Just hold her hand. That's good. You're grounding her. Just breathe. This is a way we attend to others. We don't crash in and try and fix them. We just be with them because it's processing. When we stay out of intellect, when we stay out of the deep grief, and we ride the edge, it's promoting healing. So breathe.
It feels better.
Is it better? Okay.
Yes.
So you have some grief work to do, obviously. attend to it. Stephen Levine wrote a book called Unattended Sorrow, and he says that because we don't attend to these griefs, these sorrows, they harden the heart and make us less available, make us less loving, make us less compassionate. So we attend to them with the breath. Okay?
Thank you
And if you'd
very
like,
much.
please swing by and see me. I'd love to chat with you about this, and we'll work a little bit more on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, by all means. So your hand was up and your hand was up. I'm checking the time because they told me that, boy, they like drop the lights at 11:30. So yeah, please, right all the way up here, please. Wish I had names. I'd tell you where to go. Yeah, please.
So I've had a problem with my vision. It breaks up, distortion in the side. It's almost like a piece slides out. Weird. And so I just went into the feels like of that, just what it feels like when that happens. And I saw colors like blue and green waves, and I just let that move over me. And then I saw a pinpoint of light right in my vision, right in my third eye, and my crown started tickling like here.
Yeah?
And then I heard the words, relax, let it go. And then I saw that lady standing up singing, let it go, let it go, let it go. That's kind of what happened.
Excellent. And how does that feel at this
I
moment?
feel very peaceful, very relaxed.
Good. I mean, the best outcome is we feel better. And if you'll just hand that right forward, you're passing now? Okay. You did not? Oh, okay. You sure? No, just, okay. So let me move on. Thank you so much for your help with the microphone, and thank you to some of you for participating. The reason I do that is because, unfortunately, the problem with a lecture format is it places you into reception rather than participation. And so bringing you in, hearing different voices, comparing notes, hearing some of these stories brings things to you I can't bring, especially because I want you to be involved, engaged in the dialogue. Otherwise, it's a one-way communication, and I don't find that to be helpful. If you haven't noticed, I'm actually a social worker by education, so if I sound social worky, that explains everything. So, let me propose something to you as I begin to move towards closure. The problem we run into is we like to take a form, a technique, a routine, a practice, a modality, and we like to reify it. Reify means to fix in place and to make real. Your feelings, this web of information, it is ever moving, it's dynamic, it's changing. The metaphor I use for this is, it's kind of like what we do is we run out into a sparkling mountain stream with our bucket, and we dip down and we get a bucket of water up, and we run to the shore, and we're delighted because we finally captured it, and we look at it, and it's flat and still, and all the sparkle is gone. That's what we do. And so what happens when we bypass this intellect, when we go into this feeling place, we're going into a space that can stay dynamic because we never know what's going to come up. We have no idea what's waiting for us. But if it's true that there's this whole experiential web of stuff just waiting for us, then it's our opportunity to wade into it. Now, I actually love a metaphor, and the metaphor comes from Joel Goldsmith. For those of you who know Joel Goldsmith, founder of The Infinite Way, several of your hands are going up. Recognized to have been quite the mystic in many, many ways. He's a part of study I've been doing for a long time. What Goldsmith says is, he says, we need to understand we are nothing but midwives. I'm not the doer. I can't do anything. Whatever it is, call it grace in Goldsmith's language, call it well-beingness, call it awareness if you like Anthony DeMello, is something that passes through us that we can't lay claim to. So what I like about the analogy of the midwife is, and I think about this when I practice this with folks, when I practice it with myself, is if you think about the appropriate midwife attitude, the appropriate midwife attitude is, glory be, I caught a baby. I had nothing to do with its creation. I actually had nothing to do with the birthing process. At best, I get to wipe the slime off of the face and give it to its mama. And then I disappear. That is a very non-egoic way of looking at how we can work in the world. Because we've got egos that want to say, I do the healing. It's how I deployed the crystal. It's that prayer that I gave them, right? It's the fact that I touched them. It's just, we want to take on rather than entering into what some would call the mystery. And so part of the reason, and thank you for being willing to let your tears show, part of what I was trying to do there is to there's different language for this, is to hold a space so the work can get done. We're not the doers, the workers, the solvers, the healers. We are those who hold space. All kinds of modalities work to hold space. I know a psychic masseuse who uses psychic massage to promote healing. Great, that's not my deal, but it works. I know people who do some great work with crystal healing. I know people who do meditation. There's all these things. What we do is we get attached to a modality, an approach, rather than understanding that the best practice is where we hold space. And I'm going to go back to Goldsmith again. Goldsmith says, we don't know what will descend into the space. We don't know what healing is needed. We don't even know how you might be thinking about it because we don't have any way to even articulate the things that are trying to be made right. And the highest level of regard and respect for that space is to try to stay out of it with people. If it's true that there's a force, a power, the way, thou, God, Brahma, whatever, it does not need our assistance, but our little egos want to get in there and play. Right? My daughter cooked this one up. She said, your problem is, Dad, that you keep wanting to insert yourself into my movie plot. And there's not a role for you there. Kind of like the little kid, right? The little kid, the old rabbit ears thing. It's like there's a home movie, right? And there's this thing going on. The little kid goes, right? Like that. That's what the ego wants to do, is it wants to jam itself into it because the ego wants the attention being drawn to it. And our best work, whether it's therapeutic, whether it's healing, whether it's meditative, whether it's being a teacher, whether it's being an advisor, is when we stay out of their plot. We trust that the universe, spirit, is going to bring what needs bringing, and that each and every one of us has the wherewithal to get what we need. At best, we're holding a space for them. So I'd like to offer up a couple thoughts for your consideration. But before I do that, I want to connect a couple things for you. One thing I want to connect is Sherry O'Brien, right over here, is going to be talking at 1 o'clock. She's actually a practitioner in a much deeper level of some of what we've just been talking about here in regards to trauma. I have basically put a foundation in place that she's going to be able to add to in a very, very magical way. So please don't miss her at 1. Natalie Sudman, who was back over here, but I don't see her now, tomorrow afternoon is actually going to tell the story of her experience in recovering from trauma, which in my way of thinking is going to add to what I've set in place, what Sherry's going to add to, and then Natalie's going to tell you part of her story about this passage through, well, I won't preempt. She's got a lot of cool stuff to tell you, so don't miss Natalie either. Actually, lots of great stuff. Those are the 3 that I know for sure are additive to what I've done here this morning. I'm going to be out at my booth. I'd love to chat with you all. I actually do breath work with people. I'd love to sell you a book, but you got to buy that from Ozark Mountain because they're selling it at their table. If you're interested in what I'm up to, I've got a website called seeingtrue.com where I am channeling a bunch of material that you may find useful, you may not. Please check it out there if you're interested. I've got some other books to sell and so forth. And I'm also going to do a workshop, an experiential workshop on Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock where we're going to do some of the things that we started here in a more experiential way. So love to have your participation. I know there are lots of things here to distract you, so do what you will. I only hope that you find what you would like to find. So let me close this way. The reason I'm up here is because what I'm teaching you is personal. I am not here as a practitioner. I'm here as one who has been healed. I'm one who has had to receive de-traumatization work. I've one who had to be taught breath work. I've one who had to be yanked back from the abyss of some very destructive patterns in my life. I've had some remarkable teachers, some remarkable therapists. There are a number of things that have added up to that. So the reason I'm sharing that is because too often what happens is we speakers get up here, and what happens in the psyches of those who are listening is, well, he can do that, but he's the expert up on the stage. Right, what we do is plus I'm up here, I'm wearing black, they got a mic on me, the whole deal, right? They're recording me, so I'm like an expert, right? Well, what happens is you start thinking that what the expert is talking about is not relevant to you, and it happens below the threshold of your awareness. So in fact, what you need to know is that the reason I practice is because I had to learn it for myself. I had to put together grief from a dog. And the story is pretty simple. When I was about 12 years old, my childhood dog got hit by a car and killed. And I remember it vividly because the next morning, I was up to do my paper route, and my dad had placed the dog lovingly on some newspapers in the garage. And I spent about a half hour sobbing and beseeching God to bring my dog back. It was probably the most honest prayer a little boy could utter. And God did not do what I knew God could do. I didn't cry after that period, and I didn't pray for years. The resentment was so deeply held within me. And what it took was for me to get another dog at the age of about 35 who had some irreparable damage from abuse that she had experienced prior to us bringing her into our home. And the dog would go into these deep spasmodic periods, and I would curl up on the rug, sob, because I was being taken back to my dog episode. I had no idea that a 35-year-old man with a master's degree in social work could have so much unfinished business. And it was at the feeling level, and it had to be solved at the feeling level. And the mistake we make is we minimize. Well, come on, Ron, you were 12, it was just a dog. The Course in Miracles says there are no small upsets. Any upset that blocks us off from the source is a significant upset and must be attended, no matter the outer appearance. So we don't minimize, we stay with it, we use work to promote this healing. I will also say this, and then I will turn this thing back over to, I guess Dolores is next on stage. The biggest transformation for me came in practicing this breath work when one day I was thrown back to something just after the moment of birth. And it was, what I got was a glimpse of a feeling at that moment, because I was not born into the best of settings, right? Not bad people, just there were some things going on that were pretty challenging. The words that came to me when I was in that space were, this is a really, really problematic place, and you are going to have to perform really well, else you die. Well, what I was trying to unravel, that thread, was a lifelong battle with what we would label performance anxiety, that I could never perform well enough, even though I'm pretty talented. What happened when I finally pulled that string out and the story unfolded was I got some relief about my life that I have never before imagined possible. And I didn't know it was there. It was lurking down here in this soup of feelings, the only access to which I could gain by using breath, quiet time, journaling, and a willingness to go into that space. So I have personal experience with transformation. I've seen it in others. I could regale you with stories for a long time, but I don't have that time. So my closing thought for you is, breathe, breathe, breathe. Thank you. You've been great.